Thanks for your patience. I could have done this last night, and I didn't, because I actually believe it's healthy to take a beat and give a thoughtful response instead of a reaction. Everyone has emotions. Everyone has an emotional reaction. Everyone has the capacity for emotional intelligence, but it takes an intelligent and a self-controlled person to actually leverage it. So hopefully that's what I can model. I'm going to address a couple of things very quickly. This won't be a detailed discussion, but for those who asked my thoughts, and it's quite a few, because I'm in a very interesting position. I will tell you first and foremost that these are my thoughts. This is not representative of the Department of Defense, anything with the military, the U.S. Marine Corps. And I also want to frame a couple of things really quick for service members. You need to remember that you have an oath to uphold the Constitution, first and foremost. As a military officer, I will not and I cannot talk poorly and take an open stance against any president or anyone that's in authority appointed over me. My oath is to the Constitution. I also have sworn an oath to obey the orders of the president and all officers appointed over me. And if there's ever a time where I didn't like that, I could resign my commission. So first of all, I'm not foolish enough to do that. And second of all, I wouldn't, because I don't find it healthy. I will say that there have been many officers appointed over me who I 100% disagreed with some of their positions, some of the things they told me to do. I'm not saying deeply, ethically, or morally, but there has been a lot of disagreement that I've voiced. So that doesn't mean you can't voice personally in private your own positions, but you're not in a position to jump online and potentially damage your career and ruin things for yourself and your family that you've worked hard for. And we talk a lot about protecting what you've earned. And it's not a cliche, it's actually really wise counsel to think about what you're going to do. So I would encourage you, if you're in the military, be thoughtful before you post. Doesn't mean you can't have an opinion. The second thing I want to say is that I hear a lot of people that say the military, hey, you're just apolitical because you're in uniform. I don't agree with that. And that might rile some people up, that's okay. I actually believe the nature of what we do is very political. You can go look this up. There are 4 instruments of national power. It's the diplomatic, information, military, and economic. And one or any of those could be leveraged at any time. So the fact that whether it's US military or even within NATO, decisions to employ a military response option come as a political decision from the military committee and the North Atlantic Council that flow down to the strategic level, and then that initiates into operational planning, which is something that I live and breathe and advise the top planners in NATO on. And I said earlier that I have an interesting perspective because I do. I'm currently in Norfolk at the Joint Force Command, helping their top planners and some of their senior leaders with ideas as they revise part of their regional plan. And these things are just in the collective defense of people in Europe against adversaries. So I will say that people ask, what's the current posture like for you in NATO? What's it like being in Europe? It's no different than being anywhere else with people. There are things about it I love. There are things about it that are incredibly difficult. And it has nothing to do with the fact that it's Europe and I'm American. It has to do with the fact that we're all people. And people can be difficult, and people can be beautiful, and people can suck. And that's the same everywhere. So I want to very quickly talk to you about humility, identity, resilience, and teamwork. And humility really is a starting, acting, and ending posture. And these things aren't just words that I tie into a coaching mantra. They've been forged through a lifetime of serving in very cross-cultural environments to protect and defend and stand up for what's right and what freedom I believe we should earn and protect. So, humility, I'm going to read this and just let it sink in however it sinks in for you. And I'll close out after I read these definitions the way I view them. I'll close out with a thought on how I handle cross-cultural engagements, conflicts, relationships, difficulties. Humility is a continuous posture. We promote a culture where all are recognized as students of each other's experienced thoughts, actions, and reflective feedback. All are quick to listen to, deliberate to understand, and eager to practice each other's ideas. What does that look like for me in action? It's difficult. I'll give a quick example. We had a planning initiative through a workshop, and there were a lot of different countries there. And if you're facilitating something like that and you're leading something like that, even if there's not conflict, there is going to be tension by the nature of cultures and differences. So there were French, Italian, British, American, Spanish, Turkish. There were quite a few nations represented, even more Polish, German. I could go on and on. There were the majority of a lot of the states and countries that are represented within NATO at this workshop. And as we had different initiatives and we wanted to engage with some creative and critical thinking exercises to get these planners really focused on what we needed to do, I step back and I watch the cultural tensions, the cultural tendencies of different cultures. And a humility steps into a space where there might not even be conflict yet, there's just difficulties, and realizes, first of all, these people are all trying to communicate in my language. It is not their first language. So taking an arrogant posture of, I know more than you, which I don't, it's just that, it's arrogant, it's foolish, and people sniff that out really quick. So again, realizing that people are feeling beings that think and not the other way around, you might approach a little more gently how you handle them. And you might approach them with a little bit of care and a little bit of thoughtfulness. So I said, these people are actually having to cycle through things that me and my other facilitators are sharing outside of their native language. That's hard. And they're operating at a high intelligence level and a high operational level, not in their first language. I couldn't even do that because guess what? I don't speak another language. So that sort of humbles you when you sit down and go like, these things where I could posture dominance over someone, they actually might be more dominant than me because they're operating at a much higher level and capacity by the simple fact that they're servicing my language and my lazy desires. I'm not speaking in theirs. So that's something to think on. And then the cultural tensions of just knowing how people respond to conflict, knowing how different personalities, different rank structures, different hierarchies in a room might limit how people will engage. So how do you set an environment where people can creatively and freely share thoughts without pressure that's imposed by their own systems and structures? It's really difficult, and you cannot do it unless you are very quick to listen and not to speak, and very deliberate to understand and not assume. So those environments can just be laced with landmines. And the quickest way to navigate that is to be humble and to be all about the people, even if you don't agree. And I promise you, I don't agree with all of them. And we don't see eye to eye on everything, but that doesn't matter because I'm not there to make a point. I'm there to be helpful and to make a difference. And that never comes through arrogance. I've been a lot of places in a lot of conflicts and a lot of tensions, arguments and environments where people are literally trying to take other people's lives. And I promise you that even in those positions, you don't fight and defend from a place of hate. That leads to war crimes and a lot of things you don't want to hear about and you never want to see. You can fight and defend from a place of love for, and that looks much different. If you want to hear about it, go check out my episode with John Epps on love, an absolute warfighter, an absolute dear brother who knows a lot about these things as well. The next thing, identity. All understand who they are and why they are valued as individuals and team members. we clearly articulate our purpose and desired future state. Our thoughts are divergent and our actions are decentralized to leverage our creativity and strength. So next, it's okay to share that you have divergent thoughts and opinions, but you understand that you and all others have an identity that's important and it's valued. And you leverage that. And good leaders facilitate that. And they aren't scared that people are different, or maybe even hold different opinions. If they want to get to a better future state together, they find a way to navigate that. Next, resilience. We accept and press through every task and challenge with unified tenacity and unwavering positivity. We are always attentive to, but never over-fascinated or bound by, our thoughts, surroundings, circumstances, or oppositions. So, resilience is thrown around a lot, but really, what it means is quite the opposite of just ignoring that there are oppositions and things that we need to work through and struggle, or just discarding them, or discarding the other people that bring those positions and thoughts that oppose us. It's actually being attentive to it, but not letting it control you, not being over-fascinated or bound by it. Realizing in a humble posture of identity what your true purpose is, aligning those things. That doesn't mean you don't stand up for what's right. That doesn't mean you don't oppose what other people think. And I've seen this play out time and time again in my own organization, in my own dealings in NATO, in my own dealings just in culture, in and throughout Norway, Europe, places where people are different than me, because we are different people. And it's not always that complicated of a process and an idea, but we make it that way, and we make it really difficult because we lace in a lot of our own pride and ego. And that's a really harmful place to be. And the last thing is teamwork. And I think this ties a nice bow around the other three. We can approach this with an idea of pursuing and welcoming a culture of collaboration and feedback from inside and outside our team, our culture, ultimately promoting timeless and unbiased growth. Teamwork ties the other three principles together, and it empowers us to be a team or a culture with and on which everyone wants to work. So, the mantra, even though it's trademarked, victory through hurt, that is where my heart lands on it. It's not just a mantra, it's a lifestyle. I struggle with it every day. I struggled with it yesterday. I stepped into a room full of a lot of different nationalities. I was the only American in the room. And it was immediate that because of the geopolitical climate that we are in, which there's always been tension, but they started taking some shots, sniping at me, saying things, trying to rile me up. He's the American in the room. This is too easy. Literally verbatim things we're saying. Oh, how about this? We step into a room. The certain name of this room was named after a city. And someone goes, I don't like this room. It's a little small. Hopefully we can get another conference room for our workshop. And the other guy looks at him and goes, you don't like this room. You could just rename it. It's what the Americans do. And then he looks at me and goes, it's too easy, right? I can just take shots at you, you Americans. And he starts taking this posture against me, like I have the power to rename anything. It's interesting. So in those moments, what do? How do I react? Hopefully not, or respond. And how I responded was just a smile and stuck on my hand because I hadn't even met this dude. I said, hi, I'm Josh. What's your name? And this dude was a very high-ranking officer, very high-ranking. And so I just made it personal in a good way, in a humble way, and said, man, I'm really glad that we could come here. Thanks for welcoming us to your headquarters. I can't wait to work with your team. And that was it. So I ignored something that really was not consequential towards anything we needed to do to my purpose, or that wouldn't be healthy for the team. In cultural humility in general, but especially in a cultural setting, is so important to navigate something that's already laced with tension, frustrations, things that are just, I think, a byproduct of human nature. that can really suck. So people have asked, what do I think about living in Europe in these times? Honestly, it's not much different than when I moved out here with my family almost 3 years ago. There was a war going on. There was a country that invaded another country. The whole premise of everything I do in my day job currently is to try and help defend and deter against those things creeping in to the NATO alliance. And I'm proud of the work that we do. I have my dearest friend who works next to me almost every day unless we're traveling different places. And I want to leave you with this thought. He's a German infantry paratrooper, and we both do the same job because there's usually two of us that do the same expertise. So as an infantry guy, we do land operations and plans together. He's on this trip with me now. Such a brilliant dude. And we've talked about these things a lot. If you were to rewind the game tape to a place called Belleau Wood, where there were Marine infantry who were killing German infantry in battle in a very historical and meaningful battle for Marines. Now you can rewind that game tape back to today. There is a Marine Corps infantry and German infantry officer who could not be tighter brothers, could not be more aligned. How do those alliances and friendships happen when you live in the past of different decisions and cultures and you can't grow and transform and evolve to a better future state together? It's complicated, it's messy. It is not apolitical, it is highly political. But I would say for me, in my family, in my house, we choose to obey what God says. And people ask, and there's my answer. I'm going to put something up right now that shows you a quick framework that I use for navigating just conflict. And it applies in the same culture, cross-culturally, it doesn't matter. There is a timeless model that can help provide resolution and clarity. And it's not on my own power, and it's not on my own might. It comes from a heart that's rooted in this model of hurt that isn't something, although I created it as a helpful mental model for myself, it's really rooted in the model of Christ. And that's where I landed. The cliche, what would Jesus do, that was funny and on bracelets, it's actually not a bad question. It's actually a great way to approach things. So are there people that are on a political and global platform that do and say things that I don't agree with? Across the board, across all boards, yeah. Because I actually can't think of a president or a world leader or a country leader anywhere that I've ever met that I've fully agreed with. Can some of those things they say be more damaging than other, maybe less trivial ideas? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, sure. Is it healthy, especially as a military officer or a military member, to take some sort of stance to verbally degrade someone? I don't find that healthy. That doesn't mean you have to agree with them. But knowing your place, knowing your role, knowing what you can affect in trying to make a difference looks way different, and it's way harder work than trying to make a point. So I'll share this with you in this model of timeless conflict resolution. If you want, I'm happy to send it to you. Reach out, shoot me a message. I'll share it with you. But I don't feel any different about, who do I feel threatened with my family living where I'm at, or do I feel more scared or nervous? I don't choose to live that way. I don't live in fear. There's the same level and amount of threats today in my mind as there were almost 3 years ago when we moved out here. There's still the same cultural dynamics and struggles and tensions. And culturally, they're elevated, sure. And all it does for me is provides an opportunity to really apply the way I want to approach it on an individual, interpersonal, loving way to make a difference and not just a point. proud of you. For those of you who asked, there are my thoughts on it. There is victory, from what I've seen, in a life of doing this, in humility, identity. You don't have to forfeit that, because it's been given to you. Resilience, don't be fascinated or bound by things that oppose you. Learn to grow from them. And then teamwork. We actually are better together. And Christ's prayer to the Father for all of humanity was that they would be one as the Son and the Father were one. And that's my heart. That people, through a relationship with their Creator, could become one and stop the division and stop the power grabbing and stop the arrogance and take a humble posture that makes a better world together and a better society and culture together through words of love and encouragement and challenge and being strong and being bold, but in a thoughtful way. So, what are your thoughts on it all? I might be opening up Pandora's box. That's okay. But I think choosing kindness, choosing patience, it's important. And we tell our little girls, it's very scriptural, but there are going to be 3 things that we believe in the end will remain: faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these, it's love. So, the world that I want to leave for my little girls is one that looks like that. So take a beat, don't react, give a thoughtful response. There's mine. Love you.